Instead of going brute force, we're going symphony. We're amplifying and increasing and building different stacks that hit different things.
What's up, captains? So glad you could join me on today's episode because it's going to be a good one. So BiOptimizers, my favorite supplement company, just launched a revolutionary new product, Newtopia. These are 100% customizable nootropics. And if you're not familiar with nootropics, if you've seen the movie Limitless, that's essentially what these are, brain drugs, except not the synthetic, highly addictive form of nootropics like Adderall, for example, which is highly addictive and not great for you. These are 100% natural, no synthetic ingredients. All you get are the positive benefits, no addictive tendencies, any of that. With these, you can expect things like improved focus, boosted mood, improved creativity, like you name it. The cool thing about it is they're customizable. So before you can even order them, you have to fill out a questionnaire, like a survey. It asks you, how are you sleeping? What is your diet like? What supplements are you currently taking? How are your stress levels? How are your energy levels? What are you looking for? Improved mood, improved focus. And you have these slider bars where you can say, yeah, I want maximum focus. My mood is already pretty good, so don't really need much there. Could use a little bit more energy. It's customizable. It's freaking amazing. So I got these about 3 months ago and I've been using them. They're amazing. I already put up my YouTube reviews on the products after 30 days of using them. And I got some right here. This is Zamner Juice. You're going to hear us using this on the show. You spray it right in your tongue and they come in all, shapes and sizes, Newtopia. This is a spray bottle. They also come in pills, in powders. There's a capsule that you break open on your tongue, but the one that I just took, Zamner Juice, this is one of my favorites. I take it before podcasts because it helps with verbal fluency and it's a very quick mood booster. All right. So because you spray it right underneath your tongue, it's sublingual, gets absorbed very quick for rapid neurotransmitter stimulation. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to go in depth in this podcast and it's amazing. They've got some cool stuff in the works that I can't really share. And we get into it a little bit on the show. They're sending me some to test out. So who knows, we might have to do a part 2. And if you like what you hear in this episode, there is a discount link in the show notes to order this. But please reach out to me first before ordering because these might not be right for you. And I can help determine if this is actually what you need to take your performance to the next level. All that being said, without further ado, let's jump right into today's episode with the CEO of BiOptimizers and special guest and the mad scientist behind Newtopia. Can't say his name. You'll find out. Hello and welcome aboard another episode of the Captain's Lifestyle Podcast. This is your captain speaking, Taylor Morgan. On today's interview or interviews, we have 2 very special guests, and this might be one of my favorite interviews because we're talking everything high performance and nootropics. And so my guests on today's show are the founders of Newtopia, which are the nootropics that you've heard me talk about that I take that are wonderful. So with me today, I have Matt Gallant. He is the CEO of BiOptimizers. He has a bachelor's degree in kinesiology. He's been a strength and conditioning coach for multiple pro athletes. He's also a self-defense instructor and has over 10 years of experience formulating supplements. I also have with me the secret Mr. Noots, who has no name as of yet. There's going to be a big reveal coming soon, but as of now, he's going by Mr. Noots. And he's got a pretty crazy story. So at 5.5 years old, he built a radio, and then he started conducting dangerous chemistry experiments, building things like a helium neon laser from scratch before he turned 10. So clearly science, chemistry, and physics were always first on the list of necessary activities for Mr. Noots. He spent his 20s in the Air Force, which was a perfect platform for him to become an endurance athlete and eventually a bodybuilder. As a result of those various life events and moving from sick to superhuman, he dove deep into performance enhancing nutrition, which eventually leads him to become the chief product officer for Nootropics, mind enhancing compounds and stacks. Guys, welcome to the show.
It's awesome to be here, man. I got to say, I just love Love your set. It's the best set ever right there, folks.
Yeah. Got all the BiOptimizer stuff. Here, let me
There you go. Boom.
take a sip. Oh, and also
we need to get you one of these. This one's cool too. This is the silver and black. These are the best.
Ooh,
these are the best. Well, so we tested literally dozens and dozens of shaker cups. This is by Blender Bottle. They have a patent on this lid. It's awesome. So we'll get you one of those.
I'll also do this. We got some Zamner juice here. Let's take a little.
Check this out. How cool is this?
What is that?
Okay. First of all, how cool is that?
Okay.
For those of you that are just listening, it's what looks like a makeup tube.
Yeah, you're gonna put on
you
lipstick.
Twist, and then if you look closely, there you got a spray.
Oh, there you go.
And this is coming soon. We got so many cool products coming out for Newtopia. Like those 9 products, that's just round 1. That's the warm up. Now those are foundational, but we got so much more in the pipeline. Like me and Mr. Noots, we're both idea machines, product machines, creative machines. And, it's just a dream come true for both of us to work together and allow each other to manifest at a level that neither of us have been able to do. And the way that's going to show up in the world is a lot of awesome products. So,
and awesome people because of awesome products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead, Mark. Taylor.
I was just gonna say I was stoked for just the everything that already comes with Newtopia, the first 9 products, and now you just dropped this bomb on me that you're coming out with all these new things. Like it was already amazing to begin with. So for those of you guys that don't know, I want you guys to go into what Newtopia is, but I just want to real quick say what I love about it. And I think they're the best nootropics on the market because they're 100% customizable. The fact that you guys, before you can even order, nobody can order anything before you fill out that questionnaire where you ask things like, how is your sleep? What supplements are you already taking? Like, what are your goals? How's your energy? The fact that you customize it for the person as opposed to a one-size-fits-all supplement, that is truly revolutionary.
And Taylor, it's not just a one-time customized.
Right.
We've got this feedback loop, right? Yeah. It's an infinite feedback loop that makes you better. It helps you become better and better and better over time.
Yeah. So I just finished my first month on Newtopia, and then they send you like an update version. Like, what did you like? What didn't you like? How is this stack? Do you need more on the energy side, more focus? So yeah, truly customizable. Very, very cool.
And it's endless. So like, I'll tell a bit of my story, how Mr. Noots and I met, my journey with Newtopia, and then how, it can benefit people. First of all, was into state transformational substances since the age of 12, starting with alcohol, then moving on to drugs, a lot of weed, eventually psilocybin, MDMA, so on and so forth, ending with jungle drugs. I've been sober for 12 years. But
congratulations.
I love the ability to change states like that. It was awesome. Now, most of those states are destructive. Most of those states had dire consequences with fun interlaced here and there. I got sober after 20 years of going at it. There was some damage, and I started back on my entrepreneurial journey, and I noticed my memory was a little bit off. So started playing with things like lion's mane and V-Light. It's about like 7 years ago. A lot of EFAs, started playing with magnesiums, which led to magnesium breakthrough. All of those things helped. Started doing neurofeedback. That was a game changer. Another topic for another time. But I was playing with nootropics. There's not a lot of, of substances. I've ordered everything from pig brain extracts, which is cerebrolysin, which is one of the most powerful things you can take for the brain. Whole other topic for another show. To modafinil, to whatever. I still have about 200 tabs of modafinil in my desk that I'll never take. Why? Which leads us to the question, what's wrong with most smart drugs and nootropics? Short answer is they use a brute force approach. They blast you on one vector, whether it's adrenaline or dopamine. it doesn't matter. You end up with your receptors down regulating, the thing doesn't work. Or with modafinil, for me as an example, I felt less than the next day. I felt like I lost a step by taking modafinil. The day of, I'd feel energized. It worked. It was cool. But it wasn't sustainable. It's not something I could have done every day. Now, for some people, they can. I have some genetic variations there. But the point is, I played with a lot of different substances, all the racetams. And I was able to find things that worked. And then a mutual friend of ours said, bro, I know you're into nootropics, and there's a guy. And this guy builds custom formulas for really high-level people. I mean, right there, I'm sold, right? Like that, okay, dream come true. And but for those of you that don't know, virtually every pro athlete, they have this. I was told this in university by an Olympic shrink coach. Who said, this is 20 plus years ago. Every pro athlete has their own chemist designing their own drug stacks, which, to be able to have someone like that for your brain. Anyways, I melted. I got introduced. Mr. Noots and I got on the phone, and we just bonded. Like, it was just, I don't know, Axl Rose meeting / you name it. It was just that kind of magic. And I started experimenting with his core blends, which became what we've launched. But one thing to note is it took me, again, I would call myself an experienced psychonaut, probably 4 months to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And that led us to build better stacks and better systems, if you will. And then we launched Newtopia. And it's just a dream come true. Like, again, before it was an occasional thing. Now it's, I literally pull up my phone. I look at my calendar. Like today is a great example, right? Podcast at 5 p.m. my time. And I said, okay, well, I need to peak at that time. So I planned my stacks accordingly, took them around 3:30. I'm in an absolute perfect state for this podcast.
What would you call that state? What would you call that state, Matt?
It's the podcast stack. I mean, it's connected, it's excited, it's energized, it's not too intense. It's, it's right in that mid spot for me. I can get more intense than this, believe me. But yeah, it's just awesome. So to be able to do that, then I can downshift at night and even change multiple states throughout the day. And that's our whole approach. Back, instead of going brute force, we're going symphony. We're amplifying and increasing and building different stacks that hit different things, such as dopamine, acetylcholine, noradrenaline, adrenaline, cortisol, serotonin, anandamide, oxytocin, and GABA. So you can play with these molecules. And instead of blasting one thing, you get this much more effective state than if you're just blasting your adrenals and flying off adrenaline. So that's my version of the story of what led us to this. And I just want to say that it's been a dream come true for me as a user. And that's why we've launched this to the world. And that's why we're here.
Awesome. Yeah. Real quick, before I give Mr. Noots his chance to give a little backstory, I just wanted to mention the podcast stack thing, because myself as a podcaster, that was a huge reason why I wanted the Newtopia products, because I'm guessing similar to what you take them for, I've heard you say before that you're an introvert. I am as well. Taking some of these different stacks helps you come out, helps you better communicate, helps your verbal fluency, all that sort of thing. So I like the social command stack from Newtopia. In addition to that, and the Zamner Juice, which we took at the beginning, I also took an ice bath right before this to kind of get me in that zone. Caffeine early in the morning, but it kind of tapers off in the afternoon. I usually take some magnesium and some L-theanine right before to kind of level that out. And you talk a little bit about leveling out the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system in the Brilliant Minds Blueprint, which I think is fascinating because so many people are just like caffeine, nicotine. And then they just burn out, which I want to talk about. But now, Mr. Noots, on to you, a little bit of backstory about yourself.
Well, so you covered the early years. And I was after doing a lot of chemistry and stuff. In fact, the first thing I ever made in chemistry at 6 years old was basically the gas used in a gas chamber. And my stepdad said, hey, just be clear of the cat, man. And I actually blew up my shed. My dad gave me his shed, with his lawnmower and stuff in it. And so my first request was I need a 15,000 volt or 25,000 volt neon sign transformer because I need a Jacob's ladder because mad science comes with a Jacob's ladder, as we all know from Frankenstein. So I was doing hydrolysis experiments and I was creating hydrogen and oxygen separation in water, right, with different salts. And eventually one day, keeping it on while I was working, not paying any attention, the Jacob's ladder is doing high voltage arcs up. The top of my shed is filling with hydrogen. It gets down to the arc, fires it up, it explodes. It lifts the roof all the way off. It blows the door off. It sears my hair off. And my dad and my big brother were playing billiards in the billiards room, which was a garage, converted garage, right, at the house. And they're going, what? So it was fun.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 8.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah. I was doing things like that when I was 8 too. Yeah.
I was pouring gasoline on pieces of wood and lighting them up on fire. That was the extent of my chemistry experiments.
Yeah. Hardcore. So, So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, I was really fortunate to have I grew up really blue collar, but my dad was really resourceful. He was heating and air conditioning tech. And so he would trade out services to the local hardware store when hardware stores had chemicals and, all kinds of stuff, right, for the farm and other things. And he would trade those out and bring me stuff. Or he'd go to the to the TV repair shop and he'd go, well, give me the TVs that nobody can fix. And I'm going to bring them to my son. And so he'd bring them to me and I would make TVs that worked. So I was that weird geeky kid at, 8, 9, 10. And then I had my neighbor at the end of the block was from MIT and Xerox PARC. So he taught me electronics and how to build, stuff out of transistors and then the early chips, the 555 timer chips and 741 op amps and things like that. So I had this wonderful cauldron of experience that I was able to play with. And then I joined the military and signed up as a secret agent, as an OSI agent. And because I'd been, like Matt, I'd been relatively experimental with the drug scene during my teen years. They said, well, you absolutely qualify and everything's cool. This is after tech school, but they said, we think you're possibly a problem if in fact you've got a background in that. We can, and the opposition can throw drugs at you. So anyhow, I got out of that one. But we fast forward, and I don't know if you remember, there were these two, this crazy guy and girl, Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw, back in the 80s. They were, I think, starting in about 82. They formed Life Extension Foundation, LEF, and they were all about life extension, right? And so I just buried myself in that going, how do you do this? Because everything they talked about was outside of, exercises and breathing and meditation and things were unobtainium. You couldn't either afford it or you couldn't find it, or you had to have, a special pass to get it from Russia. And so in 93, I was a white rat in the military for a thing called Accutane, and that made me really sick and really poisoned my system really bad. So, and again, I was an endurance athlete and bodybuilder and really going for it. I even lived in the back of a health club when I started my first business, in a garage so that I could walk by and see the girls listening to Michael Jackson do Man in the Mirror as they're stretching in their leotards, right? Just remember when they put the thong outside of the leotard?
Yeah.
Yoga pants. So it was great. But I started getting really, really sick from this nascent drug that hadn't left my system, but I didn't know that. I met a doctor after I was running 3 businesses at the time in end of 92. And he said, come up to my bed and breakfast. And he just shook my hand. I showed up as a bed and breakfast and I felt like, I don't know if you've ever been to a place where you feel like you're home. Like you walk in and you go, oh, I'm home. I'm like, you just resonate with the environment. Everything is chill. And he just, he held my hand and he looked into my eyes and he asked me 20 questions. And he said, dude, I think you might be hypothyroid, but we'll find out. Let's just go spend the weekend. My wife and I will take care of you and we'll figure it out. And yeah, I was hypothyroid, but the kind of like amazing catalytic event for me was he put me on an EWAT system, exercise with oxygen therapy, where you're breathing pure oxygen, you're exercising. I was on a treadmill and about 20 minutes into a 30-minute program, this silver dollar sized sore opened up in my lat and it just started oozing clear fluid. So we sampled it, sent it to the lab, and it came back to be 82% or so Accutane. So this is after a decade of hardcore training, working out, drinking good water, doing all the right stuff. And I was dying from this drug that had been embedded in my system for that many years. And I'd been down to 8% body fat. I had done repeated cycles. I never did any roids or any of the, I didn't juice. We didn't have that kind of stuff. And I was too poor to do it. So, but it was an incredible thing. And so after that happened and I started doing, organic grass-fed bovine and porcine thyroid, it completely changed my outlook. And it like opened up my eyes going, oh my God, if who said it? I think it was like Will Ferrell or something. But if this is how good I can feel, how good could I feel if I went to the next level? And so I'm literally driving somebody to the airport and like really early in the morning at the Portland airport. And as I'm driving back, this guy is on the radio. I'm doing channeled surfing on the radio. And this guy starts talking about this thing called vinpocetine. And he's, it's one of those, and it's an early AM channel. And so that's how desperate I was for radio at that moment. And he was just talking about vinpocetine is this really cool nootropic. And I didn't know what a nootropic was. I didn't know what vinpocetine was, but he was in Oregon City, which is about 45 minutes away. So I just made a beeline, headed right to Oregon City, knocked on his door of this little recording studio, to the AM station and said, who are you? What do you do? And how can I be part of that? So that was my introduction. And then I just started expanding on that. And I started building internet companies. By 1994, 95, I got pretty excited about the internet and I was building laser technology. And then I built an effervescent tablet that would basically preload your system at night with the amino acids necessary to increase human growth hormone, called a secretagogue. So I did that for a couple of years and then sold the company to my partner, the guy that had that radio show, and went off and did internet companies and ran an incubator in Newport Beach, California. And it was just fantastic. And I had a really interesting opportunity to work with incredible startup entrepreneurs as well as venture capitalists and moderating venture capital conferences and things like that. Because I was the high school dropout, that actually had raised money successfully. So, we fast forward and my former wife dies of an oxycodone overdose. And, and it was, she had just fallen in love with it. We had a home birth. We had 3 home births actually. And the last home birth, she tore a little bit. They gave her 4 oxycodone, the midwife, and she was she fell in love. And Matt can talk about what it's like to have, whatever that element is with whatever those receptors are that they hit. And, in the case of alcohol, GABA receptors are a big one. And you go, I'm in heaven. I finally found my muse. Let me go play with that. And so she died. I had just helped build and then helped sell a company called prweb.com, which was the largest online PR web platform in the world. David McGinnis founded it and was the chief engineer and really the brains and did a fantastic job. So he saw that. He saw me tweet that here I'm watching my former wife, this beautiful woman, as shoving a needle through her heart, trying to revive her. She'd been dead they figure about 20 to 40 minutes. And I didn't realize that they were reviving her because of organ harvesting, but at the time we were organ donors. So anyhow, it just got me into this thing. And David said, hey, come on up here. I got a house for you. So I moved up to Northern Washington and I spent the next 4 years building prototypes of nootropics, starting with pyroglutamic acid, which is kind of the mother of all nootropics. And then expounding on that, and building these really shitty tasting test tubes of powder and then sending them to these people. I had a brainstorming software company at the time that I founded with the founder of Century 21 Real Estate. And so I had these incredibly smart people, from Drew Carey, the comedian, to some of the great David Allen, the Getting Things Done guy. So I would send in these shitty tasting test tubes of powder and saying, how does this make you feel? How does it work? Does it work for you? Does it make you smarter? Do you feel like you can think clearer? Are you more creative, or did you just throw up? What was the deal? And after doing about 3,000 of those, ended up with this incredible formula. My son we had a little recording studio in the garage and a spare room in the house. And my son was a really good guitarist, and a bunch of the kids in his school would come around and hang out. You know, everybody was to record, right? When you're 16, there's nothing better than having a jam room. Mm-hmm. So they partied until about 4 a.m. They come in the next morning at about 10 and say, "Hey, dude, we need some of your Jesus juice," because that's what we called it. And so I made up a batch, but I made a twist to one of the components in it. And it was very subtle in terms of the quantity, but it was radical in the output. And they drank the stuff down, and then they burst into my bedroom about 40 minutes later, and they said, dude, we just wrote a song. We've never written a song that fast. This is freaking amazing. And it was awesome. And they wrote 4 more songs that day. And I realized that we had, crossed the chasm of what it took to get the Nootropics to work well, because one of the problems I was having was Nootropics worked really good if you let them season at night when you slept. Then they would be kind of effective in the morning, but then they would have a quick burnout before noon typically. But this allowed you to take it during the day, not fall off the performance curve while they were processing. And then you could boost them in the early afternoon when you're about to go into siesta mode and get your performance boosted again. And you could elect, by doing little twists to these formulas, you could elect to go from hyper focused, almost asshole mode focus, to hyper creative, where you're pulling your popcorning ideas and you're able to get them down, right? Because you're not losing them. It's not the brain fart stuff where you go, God, that was a great idea 5 minutes ago. What was that again? And so that was kind of the genesis of this. And then my first customer was, and still is, the lead photographer for Sports Illustrated for their Olympics. So a great guy. And then my second customer that I really knew outside of a handful of people that knew me on Facebook was the founder of Napster. And then his good friend and business partner, who is the president of Facebook. And it just kept scaling like that. So a bunch of these really interesting high-end cats were taking our stuff and they were using it to augment their performance. And even though I had done some pretty hardcore bodybuilding and athletic endeavors, it was always like replacing your salt levels, or getting good sleep, or right, the basics, right? Or some real basic amino acid mixes. This was so far above that, and it was repeatable, which was really cool. So I could go, okay, I want to perform like this today, and I'm going to perform like this tomorrow. And I was doing it every day, trying to see where the breakdown would happen. Like, where would I level off, or where would I get a declining curve? Because I was saturating the receptors and causing downregulation of hormones and all that. And just tweaking things, I found out that you could get this really reliable performance. And when Matt and I met, it was like, holy crap, here's a guy that understands not only neurology and biochemistry, but also gets the stack topology stuff, where you mix different stacks and you understand that these little nuances make huge differences, and understands upregulation and downregulation of the systems. And it was like, it was a life changer. And we tooled with the idea of how fast do we go? How fast do we want to work together? And it's been a year now that we've been playing, and I don't have, I have an engagement ring, but there's no, but it's been this incredible, the way I feel about it. And this is, I'm not saying this with ego, I'm saying this with total honor, is I feel like I got to be Johnny Ive, and I was in the basement of Apple when Jobs was asked to come back as CEO, and Jobs is scouring the place for any bodies that were worthwhile. And he saw me down there making a bunch of prototypes and said, hey, dude, I'll protect you from the ravages of the shit that goes down when you're trying to do these kinds of things in a silo. If you want, and then maybe we can do something amazing together. And yeah, every day has been an incredible performance orchestra with Matt. So yeah. Yeah.
Cause when I first found Newtopia, I kind of felt that way too. Like when I first heard about you guys, I was like, whoa, like, why is nobody talking about this? Why have I never heard anything about this? And I looked more into it, and it's like, there's no podcasts on it. There's no articles on it. Like, it was just the website. Because I found out about it when like you had just launched. And so turns out like, yeah, you just launched. And if I felt that way, having, not having been a part of it, I can't even imagine what you guys felt like actually creating this and now releasing it and getting it out there. That's just incredible.
Hey, big shout out to Brad Costanzo.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, very good marketer, very cool guy. Yeah. So first of all, again, what Mr. Noots was doing on his own was, again, for anybody who's into performance, a dream come true. And what we've done with Newtopia is create the scalability, and that's what's never been done. You can always pay someone enough to do, custom personalized things, but it'd be usually 10 to 25 times more than what we're charging. That's not an exaggeration. So that's the difference. That's the value we're bringing. We're bringing the technology, the packaging. We're getting into robotics. We're getting into plant extractions. We're getting into all these things that are going to allow us to take even what we're doing now and blow it away. And that's not an exaggeration. First of all, the packaging that's coming soon. I mean, this stuff's just. Oof. I mean, I can't believe it. I swear to God, I can't believe the packaging. That's how good it is. But then all the new blends that are coming out. But even the intake form, we're working on optimizing that so that we can understand people even better. So we're going to assess their nervous system, assess their neurochemical deficiencies and dominances, and mod the stacks around that. Because at the end of the day, again, it comes down to really your nervous system and your neurochemistry. If you want to be modding and pushing things either up or down, depending what you're trying to do. I mean, if you're trying to meditate and really be really calm, then the nervous system is really a key part of that. Magnesium breakthrough is amazing for that. L-theanine, which Taylor, you said you took earlier, those things really help. But even some of the stacks like Brain Flow is very parasympathetic. It's a great stack to take if you just want to have a chill day, a more quiet, introspective day. And then on days like this, the Zamner coffee, power solution, you can up the energy, again, up my adrenaline. So I've got excitement. I've got verbal fluency. That's a big part of the state that I'm in right now. Just to be able to shift that at command, it's fucking awesome. There's no other way to describe it. I started playing around with high performance states when I got into hand-to-hand combat. So I trained with the Navy SEAL for 7 years from the age of 19 to 26. And it was hardcore. It was hardcore. Okay. We got into hardcore training. I had a training camp for an MMA fight. Again, this is way, way, way early in UFC days. And we had to get into high performance states and then even shift while you're fighting to go from a more intelligent strategic state to focus savagery, absolute savagery. And you got to be able to shift in the middle of a fight based on what's happening. And you see the best fighters in the world, you call that fight IQ, they're able to shift as needed during the fight. And that was an awesome experience. And to be able to understand the state-dependent learning and all the things that we would do to hardwire states was profound. And when you add the Newtopia stacks to that, you're able to start crafting, creating new states. And now we're getting into the topic of alter ego. And I got to give massive credit to my boy, Todd Herman. His book, The Alter Ego Effect, is a masterpiece. It's such a profound, simple concept that so many of the top performers in the world use, whether it's athletes, actors, musicians. They craft these alter egos and they're able to just shift into them and become people like The Rock or Hulk Hogan or Kobe Bryant, God bless his soul. All these high performers, Ozzy Osbourne, Beyonce, they've all got these alter egos that can just snap into and perform. And as entrepreneurs, you want to, or just as an athlete, you might even have a variety of these states. So I've got about 6 that I'm kind of conscious of that I've taken the time to craft and to think about. Use the alter ego effect process. It's a great process to help you get clarity around that. But then as you add different things, even music, so let's get into some of the other elements other than just nootropics, right? because you can listen to music, you can do exercise. With fighting, we would slap our forearms hard, which stimulates noradrenaline. There's all these different things you can do that will help you hardwire these states or activate these states, right? Like you talked about doing a cold ice bath before the podcast, that stimulates adrenaline, which gets you into a state. So that's where there's a lot of physical things you can do, or again, listening to music, playing with your pets, you're hugging. All of these things are constantly shifting our neurochemistry. And the more we understand that, that's why we wrote a book on it, which is part of the Newtopia boxes, that will help you control that. So anyways, I'll stop here because I want to give Mr. Noots a chance to talk.
So Matt, I'm glad you brought up the neurotransmitter imbalance, and Mr. Noots, I'd like you to touch on this. This is one of the first things that I have my clients do in the program is take a test to determine their neurotransmitter deficiencies, what their dominant neurotransmitters are, and a lot of problems that you could be facing can stem from that imbalance. So go ahead and talk to us a little bit about that.
So the Braverman test, right?
That's what they take.
Yep. Yeah, it's incredible. And we're going to do an enhanced version of that down the line here. Because now that we have feedback loops with the app, we're able to play with more real-time data and start working with that. But yeah, so those are really critical aspects. And the deal is, like, Matt and I talk about going from sick to superhuman. What most people don't realize is that in one aspect of your life, if you were really honest, you're probably not high performance in an aspect of your life, right? Of your physiology, neurology. So some people we think of as these focusing monsters. They can just get into something and stay in there. We think of people that get in the zone. We think of the Zen type people that are just in flow state, right? Those kind of things. So the challenge that people have, and it's not I'm intrinsically ADHD, right? My baseline biochemistry is ADHD. Now, part of it might be from Accutane damage from years ago, but also my mom tells me that when I would go out to do experiments, she would have to come out in the wee hours of the morning to try to pull me away. Or when I was trying to figure out the theory of relativity, that was a 2.5 day, no sleep, just working through math problems in my head and on paper, at 7.5, 8 years old. And so that was definitely an inherent part, right? So that's focus, but hyperfocus is also an attribute of ADHD personalities. You give them the right fuel, right? Dopamine recirculating, right? You suddenly go into this mode and you're comfortable there. Time disappears, flow state 101, Kotler would tell you. Mm-hmm. And so, but if you really look at it, everybody's got this little area where they're a little bit weak, or maybe they're really weak, or maybe it's a hole in their system. You talk about Strength Finder, finding those strengths so that you're not focusing on the weaknesses, or you talk about Tony Schwartz and energy management, and you talk about, okay, you're falling off your performance curve. What's the thing that's going to pull you back into that? Is it a power nap? Is it walking around the block? Is it dropping down and doing a bunch of air squats or something like that? So what is that thing? Is it going to be a cup of coffee? What's that thing that's going to pull you into a state? So it's really important to understand those things and then acknowledge them and decide whether you're going to push the current neurotransmitter routine that gets you to the thing that you normally like to go to, or do you want to massage it and go, I want to master this other area of my neurology where I don't have mastery. And how do I do that? And that's where, the biochemistry and the neurochemistry really comes into play, where you can actually take very specific nootropics, like Matt, big Zamner Juice guy, right? So parasympathetic 101, but it also brings up your level when you have that much GABA flow in your system, right? It brings up your level, but it makes it so that you're not punching people in the face, right? To get there. You're going into a very much flow state. I think that really good neurology is not unlike Kung Fu or Tai Chi, right? Where you're moving energy around and you're just looking at where is the energy flowing and how can I assist that, rather than how do I push against it, or how can I capture it and use it for my purposes. And so in managing your neurotransmitters, it's really important to understand that. And instead of fighting it, go for embracing it. that second cup of coffee, or that fifth cup of coffee at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. may not be the cure. Right. Maybe it's closing your eyes for 5 minutes, getting into counting heartbeats and then getting into state again and coming out of it going, oh my God, I feel so much better. I feel renewed rather than, wired.
Yeah.
So,
and speaking of that, I want to bring up this little picture from the Brilliant Mind Blueprint. And I'll put a link to, or not a link, but I'll put the picture up on the YouTube version. I want you guys to talk about the stressed out lifestyle, which is basically what you just described. And I think all of my listeners will relate to this because, I coach high-performing entrepreneurs. And unfortunately, it's still very popular in the entrepreneurial space that you need to hustle and grind and just work 18, 20-hour days, sacrifice your sleep, and just use coffee to get you through the day. But
can I shut that shit down?
Yeah,
permission.
Please. Go for it.
So just a bit of background on that level. I've been an entrepreneur since I'm 19, built 13 profitable companies. I've sold well over $100 million to products online. At my peak, I was running 6 companies. But let's talk about energy management because it's a huge part of this game. So I've burnt out many, many, many times. First real burnout was my mid-20s, was working 100 hours a week. And I burned out. It took me 2 months to recover. I needed to sleep 9-10 hours a night. Like it took a while. I pushed my nervous system right to the breaking point. That was my first lesson. Over time, I've realized that the more I manage my nervous system, and what does that mean? It means that I'm cycling from sympathetic to parasympathetic consciously throughout the day. And then I'm also got some times in my life where I'm really going parasympathetic, whether that's a vacation, whether that's floating, whether that's going to camp, walking in nature. There's a lot of things we can get into, but you need to schedule that time. Now, even throughout the day, spending 10 minutes in playing, we just got a new kitten, playing with the kitten for 10 minutes, that's parasympathetic, right? I've got, beautiful plants all around me. I went walking in the park before the podcast. Those little micro bouts, it lowers my cortisol, which cortisol is what fries you. If you look at the research on cortisol, how it damages your hippocampus, damages your neocortex, you don't want to have excess cortisol. Adrenaline is awesome. Now, you want to have a bit of cortisol, right? But when it's chronically pushed too far, that's when you get problems.
I think most people have it imbalanced. They have low cortisol in the morning. That's why they rely on coffee, and then high cortisol in the evening from the blue light, the stress of work. So it's just reversed. I think people need to rebalance the normal levels of cortisol.
But let's walk through a normal person's life. That was kind of my solution. But let's go to the problem. Most people wake up, they go right into beta brainwave mode. Okay. Right away. How do they do that? They pull up their phones, they get on social, they read the news, boom, news, stress, beta brainwaves, anxiety, noradrenaline, adrenaline, blah, 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 coffee. A lot of people have to drive to work. Unfortunately, I got to say, being able to work from home is such a lifestyle changer.
It's nice.
But, they drive to work, which is stressful, right? Driving is a high beta state. You get to work, you got to hustle and grind, which I hate that. For me, it should be flow and create. But, they hustle and grind, they're pushing their bodies, they pound coffee throughout the day. Again, their breaks are on their phones. They get home. Sometimes they got kids and then they pass out from exhaustion. They might sneak in an hour or two of Netflix and then they go to bed. And it's crappy sleep. Most people's sleep quality is bad, as I'm sure well know. Mine used to be bad, until I started tracking and optimizing it. And then they rinse and repeat. And then most people are just, really if you were to measure, let's say you could take one of these people and rejuvenate them, optimize them. They're at 1/4 to 50% of their true potential. They don't know it. They might even be going 100% effort, but their ability to create is just so compromised. And that includes a lot of entrepreneurs. They just haven't learned to manage their energy. As an entrepreneur, I'm really paid on my effectiveness and my output in terms of how effective is that. It's not necessarily me working 100 hours and cleaning things and being a janitor as an example. Those things don't make money. It's the quality of my thoughts. It's the quality of my strategies, my qualities as a leader. And that's a huge part of where the nootropics come in. Back to what we were talking about, I'm serotonin deficient, GABA deficient, dopamine dominant, acetylcholine dominant. So when my serotonin and my GABA are too low, it affects my ability to connect with people. It affects my ability to be a good leader and have great meetings and make people feel great. So that's another big aspect. So when we talk about nootropics, I think a lot of people think of it, oh, I'm going to get wired and, I'm going to be flying like people are going to be flying on 5 cups of coffee or speed or whatever there is they're taking. But it's not like that. I mean, yeah, you can go for that with Power Solution, but that's not the goal. That's just once in a while, you need a brutal workout. You want to be gaming. So even like high performance for gaming, Power Solution and Focus Savagery, I mean, they're game changers. I gave one to a friend of mine. And yeah, his gaming, like just instantly that day went to another level and it just stayed there. So,
well, before we get into all the different stacks, which I'm very excited to talk about, you touched on a very important question. Probably the most important question that I wanted to ask you guys is, how can people tell that they're not actually performing at their peak capacity? Because I ask people all the time, like, how you're doing, how's your sleep, how's your performance in business? And they say, oh, it's good. It's like, okay, well, how do you know that? And I think people don't know what they don't know because they've never experienced what their actual peak level is. They think they're operating there. So how can you tell that you've got more in the tank?
Well, that's a boiling frog issue, isn't it? You get familiar with your performance level and then you kind of start making excuses for why you can't get there. And then you start falling off. Matt talked about something about the 100-hour weeks. When I was 25, I sold my first company. And then the company I sold it to, we became an Inc. 500 company a year later. So hyper growth, super fast growth. And I could not keep up. So I did polyphasic sleep, where you're awake for a few hours, you sleep for half an hour, awake for a few hours, sleep half an hour. So I was doing 4 hours a night sleep. Well, I could do it for a week, but my performance wasn't better. I was just throwing more time at it. I wasn't throwing more performance at it. And it wasn't until a decade and a half later where I couldn't do it anymore. Dude, I'm 60 years old this year. So, right. So I couldn't do it anymore. What is the key? What is the secret? How do these guys, and as I had studied entrepreneurs, as I was doing a lot of work with startups, right, especially during the 90s and 2000s, is I found that these guys that were the ultra performers, men and women who were ultra performers, they had a unique neurology and physiology that was something that didn't come out of a can, right? You couldn't do the stuff that they did for the periods of time they did. Part of it was a mental commitment. They made a mental commitment to be there, to be present, to make things happen. And the other was they had the secrets that we didn't know about. It wasn't until I got into a guy's living room one day and he showed me what he was taking and going, oh man, that's the stuff I've been playing with. Right. And you're going, yeah. All my high-end buddies in our public company, right, get-togethers, right? That's the stuff. At Davos, this is what we do. So it's that kind of thing. And I think it's really important to understand that we're fighting our own metric. And oftentimes that metric is completely wrong. That own metric is, and it's bragging rights. Oh yeah, I work 100-hour weeks, dude. Right. And how long can you sustain that before your adrenals say bye-bye, right? Your relationships are pissed off and they walk out on you. And then your employees are saying, well, he's an asshole, but he's good at hiring, so he can just keep the churn going. And it's not the way that we are meant to be. And it's not the way that I got to do a shout out. So one of the things that I'll finish with this after we're done here. Keep going.
Can I jump in on that question? I love that question. I think that question is so powerful. And it's a question most people have never really asked themselves. I'll give you an analogy because it's the exact same thing. If you'd ask most people that go to the gym, hey, did you have a good workout? You know what they'd say, right? They'd say, yeah, I had a good workout. Now, if you've trained really, really hard, Now, most people have not. This is where I'm going with this. If you've squatted until you're wobbling and can barely, and you fall down, or you've deadlifted, or you've done 100 burpees and your heart rate's at 180, 200, whatever, if anything that's really strenuous, it changes what hard is. And again, if you'd ask that person if they had a good workout, they'd have a very different answer. They might say, yeah, it was a 7, it was an 8, it was a 9. Now, again, most people are at a 2. I think when it comes to people pushing their minds, it's the same thing. Most people have never really pushed their neurology. Now, I'll give you some examples of how you could do that. One of them for me has always been writing. Writing pushes my neurology to the max, and especially copywriting, where I've got like 50 filters in my mind, and you really have to be effective, and you're thinking of all these things, plus you're creative, and then you're going left and right with the brain. It really pushes the neurology. Writing in general does. If you ever do really hardcore neurofeedback, especially the more structural stuff, that'll push your neurology that's the squatting with your mind. Now, for me, again, if you ask me if I had a great day, I know what like 9 out of 10 is on hard. So my goal, I'm not going to have every day. It's not going to be a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, but with the Noots, I can get much closer to that. So I'll give you an example. Last year with COVID, I was in Panama, hardest lockdown in the world for 5 months. We had 4 hours of freedom a week. A lot of my friends went to depressions, lost their minds, you name it. I just said, you know what? I'm going to get productive. But this is where the Noots come in. I was working on this book, which has now been retitled From Sick to Superhuman. Mr. Noots gave us that title, which is awesome. And I was crashing. In the afternoon. This is prior to meeting Mr. Noots. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I was just, not able to keep pushing my neurology to the max. It was like I had 5 hours in me. I start using the Noots. Now I can go 10, 12 hours, but that's a solid day. I think past 12 hours, your performance really starts dropping. I think no matter, you'll have these freak days of 15, 16, 18 hours, but I think 12 hours is sustainable. And if you look at the research on the optimal amount of time, it's about 56 hours a week. After that, very few people, almost everybody falls off a cliff. But with the Noots, instead of crashing at 1, 2 p.m., I'm going till 6, I'm going till 7. And we were able to write this book, which I've never been able to do. I started 4 other books prior to this, and I was never able to finish them. I get to 50, I get to 80, I get to 90%. And I didn't have whatever it took to just drive that past the finish line. With the Noots, I did. And this book was a monumental achievement for me, not just from a business perspective, but more of a growth perspective. And that's fucking awesome. So anyways,
and for everybody who's just listening, he's talking about the biological optimization blueprint, which you said is now being renamed to From Sick to Superhuman.
Correct.
Awesome. Cool. Love that. All right. So now let's get into the fun stuff. Let's get into the different hacks or stacks rather, and supplements that come with the, I guess, first edition of Newtopia, because there's going to be more coming out, which is exciting. But let's start off with my favorite, Focus Savagery. Talk to us about that.
First of all, let me describe the state of Focus Savagery, because back to state creation, back to pushing my neurology to 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. That's what that is. That's the state. So when I would write, I started tracking how many words per minute I could write. And then my goal was keep increasing that. And I was focusing and just trying to get more intense and faster output. And it was Focus Savagery. It was incredible. And I was able to turn that on. It reminded me of my fighting days. It reminds me of squats. It reminds me of just pushing yourself to the max. And being able to say there is high dopamine, high adrenaline, and you just lock in. And again, it's great for gaming. That's what I gave my friend the other day, was Focus Savagery. And he was just on fire and took his performance to another level. So that's what Focus Savagery is. My own, and back to states, if you're already wired, like you seem to be a pretty calm guy, maybe you're naturally parasympathetic. what we've noticed is people that are naturally parasympathetic, it gets them right into that sweet spot.
Yep.
Right. It gets them right into that hyper focus, but they're calm because they're just constitutionally more parasympathetic. And they just go right there. So a lot of women love it. A lot of people that are just cool, calm cucumbers, that's their stack. So I'll stop there. Mr. Noots, anything you want to add to it?
That's funny because our customer support team, that's one of their faves, and they're primarily a large group of women, handling customer support and taking care of stuff. But, when I developed that originally, before Matt got involved, it was developed as an ADHD type of alternative. Mm. My employees, when I would take Adderall or equivalent, right, methylphenidate or any of those kind of, I would become this very focused, very high functioning asshole. Like I didn't have any bandwidth for anything but let's go, right? Yeah. And it was problematic because running a good business is running great relationships, right? And solving problems in real time and not getting bothered by the fact that you're getting a stupid complaint from somebody that knows better and they're able to, and then helping them, guide them to the fact that they're going to solve the problem. Right. Anyhow. So it was one of the things that we found in the development of that was rather than push dopamine and adrenaline and then recycle it, what if we gave you the precursors necessary to create an unlimited flow of dopamine? And then we signaled and said, hey, you've got this, go use it. So that's why somebody that's parasympathetic, right, is they're natural, right? They're chill. When they take it, they don't get that. They don't get as much of an intensity. They just get this really nice focus. For those of us that aren't, that are maybe dopamine deficient or dopamine as a plus, we can go crazy on it in a good way because it's not recirculating it. It's not getting that hyper aggressive, right? It's not an MMA fight. It's not fight or flight. It's a different kind of application of dopamine.
Yeah. So, and for this, you want to make sure that once you take it, you're not just scrolling aimlessly on your phone.
Exactly.
Then you'll just keep doing that.
but that's a key thing, right? So with the nootropics, you want to be doing something, right? Yeah. Like nootropics aren't something you're going to go watch Netflix on.
No.
Right? Like you want to, if you're reading, it's awesome. And by the way, you can increase your learning dramatically by increasing dopamine. Dopamine is the learning molecule. So that's one of the ways Adderall works, increases dopamine, increases adrenaline. And when you've got focus, which is acetylcholine, that's how learning happens. So focus savagery can also be learned if you want to cram and really learn a lot of information, which is another way I love to push my neurology. I like reading or listening to 3x speed. Or reading at, there's apps you can use that'll do like 7x speed and show you the words and like just learn as fast as I can. And that's fun too. And you can use focus savagery for that. So,
yep. I'm a big fan of that as well. Listen to podcasts on double, triple speed for sure. All right. My next favorite was Nectar X. That one not only tastes delicious, but the effects are amazing. Mr. Noots, why don't you talk to us about what you created with Nectar X?
So Nectar X was an attempt, thankfully successful. That was the blend of 27 different compounds over 3,000 prototypes. So that was really what came out of that is Nectar X. And it was the first balanced, it addresses every neurotransmitter, but it also does is like what we found was that if you didn't have an adaptogen in the blend, performance would spike and fall off like a cliff, right? So if you didn't have an antioxidant in the component, you would also have some problems. And so what we did is we started balancing the ratios of those to each other. And so what you're getting is this, you can access every part of your neurology with that. And you can aim it in a direction that's going to give you the best result. So that's why I love it because it's that, it's a jack of all trades and it's a master of whatever you want it to be that day or that moment. So, yeah.
Another thing I like about it is that it's in powder form. And so you mix that in like a big water bottle and you just sip that throughout the day as needed.
Yes. And
but that's a huge part of dosing. let's talk about dosing real quick, because you're bringing up a great point, Taylor, which is one, there's the attack dose. So how much are you taking initially? And that's what you can do with Power Solution and Nectar X. And we got a new one, that's a GABA one. And you can take, more or less, and that's going to affect how it hits you. And then you stream in. So your streaming dose, how much are you taking? How long are you stretching it out? Some days I do a quarter of a bottle in the morning, and that's it. Some days I do a full bottle over 4, 5, 6 hours. So it's awesome, and you can mix and match. You do Power Solution, a bit of nectar. You can use it in the afternoon if some people crash in the afternoon. We've got great solutions for that, where that's just gone. Like I said earlier, it sucked losing 3-4 hours of prime time, and that's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be coming at you soon, brother. That's going to be coming at you soon.
Oh, what is that fancy thing?
I'm not saying. I can't tell you.
Damn, you teased us. You gave us a little tickle. So
we're getting your dopamine. By the way, dopamine is the anticipation molecule. So we just trigger your dopamine response.
Yeah. If you guys are just listening to this, you got to go watch the YouTube version. And that's another thing that I loved about these products, is that they're all different. Like there's powders, there's the sprays, there's capsules, but even the capsules, like the Brain Flow, for example, it's a capsule within a capsule. Yeah. And then there's other capsules that there's the clear segmentation of the different supplements in there with oils.
Mr. Noots, do you have the new one? Visual. Are you ready?
Let's see. You got to talk. I can't see it.
Dude. So this right here, that's
Saffron.
Very good. So Saffron has been proven. Yeah, exactly. You got good taste, brother. So Saffron has been proven to be 30 milligrams of Saffron is more effective and more reliable than Prozac as an antidepressant, right? So we talk about serotonin as being, right, kind of the SSRIs, right? Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So when you start combining it with a couple of elements, some elements of CBD, extracts of CBD, and some other elements, you get an incredibly good chill pill that doesn't put you to sleep, allows you to operate in a Zen mode, and lasts for, when I say last for hours, lasts for day, right? It's fantastic. So yeah.
Wow. So combining that with magnesium breakthrough, that's just like,
dude, yeah.
Like monk.
You're the Zen master, yeah. You can go meditate for 6 hours, which, I've done with neurofeedback. And that's his own, when we talk about states, it's not just getting stuff done. There's also, you could say, a high level of consciousness, spiritual states, getting down into alpha or slower, even down into theta. That's incredible state. So that's some of the things we're working on. We want to optimize that from a neurochemical perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Neurofeedback, you can really learn to do that.
You got a scooping powder too?
We've got the
sleep. We got some other stuff.
We got it. We got the sleep. It's. I've been working on a sleep product, probably more than any other product I've worked on, just because I'm so passionate about great sleep. Like I've been building stacks for 4 years nonstop, giving it to a lot of people. But again, the collab with Mr. Noots has led us to a place I've never been able to get to. Heart rate drops, heart rate variability goes up. You will pass out on the couch if you don't go to bed and you want to stay asleep. It's just, it hits all the notes. I've been tracking sleep even prior to the O-ring, and it's a dream come true. So coming soon with BiOptimizers.
Dream come true.
No pun intended.
And here's a cool, and one of the cool things about it is, because I was driven, same thing, right? Sleep is huge. Sleep is the world's most powerful stimulant. So if you have that, if you understand that, right? It's also recovery, everything else goes along with it, right? Cognitive performance, everything is I kept leaning into the serotonin, right? And melatonin as byproducts. And Matt's going, no, we're not going that direction, bro. Let's figure it out. Let's take different angles. And we attacked it from a bunch of different angles, and we're able to achieve a really incredible, highly reliable, it doesn't downregulate. So you don't have to take more and more and more every night to get the same effect. It doesn't have a hangover effect in the morning. If feel crisp, ready to go. So anyhow, yeah, pretty excited. I would say I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm very excited for that. And I just want to drive this point home for the listeners. BiOptimizers is a $25 million company whose revenue is doubling every year. The CEO is talking with us right now, Matt Gallant. And if he's prioritizing his sleep to this extent, don't you think that you guys probably should too? Like,
it's the one thing. Like, let me kind of give you my sleep epiphany. When I burnt out, I read a book called I think it was The Power of Sleep by James Moss. And I just realized, okay, I need to sleep a lot. I was sleeping 9-10 hours a night. But here's the thing, my sleep was trash. It was garbage. And I didn't know it. I would wake up, lose 3 pounds of water, feel dehydrated, feel groggy. No, like I didn't feel rested at all. Started tracking my sleep. I had the Zeo, then the Aura. My deep sleep was 0 to 15 minutes. Just started implementing, all the things that hopefully people know. If you haven't read From Sick to Superhuman, there's a whole chapter on it. But, darkness, cold, the chili pad, start playing with, snacks and supplements. And yeah, I've been able to transform my sleep, and it transforms every part of your life. You're just a better human being. My old fighting teacher, Christoph Clarkson, used to say, sleep deprivation is the root of all evil. It's really pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate. So.
Yeah, I used to be sleep deprived when I was in the Marine Corps. And I was wondering why I was so stressed out, why I was so aggravated all the time, why my workouts were sucking. And sleep is literally the baseline of all human performance. So real quick, I don't want this podcast to go too long, and we still got to get through the rest of these stacks here. Power Solution. That's one you already mentioned. Mr. Noots, talk to us.
It's the gaming god, bro. It's a gaming god. What I love about it is it again, it provides a balanced level of neurotransmitter enhancement so that you can function, you can dial in your function at a really good rate. And the other thing is it is a natural antidepressant level. So you're not only getting the performance out of it, but you're feeling good about the performance, which puts you in a much better, more comfortable state. So that you're not, again, I'm sure you've been a Marine.
Yes, sir.
You know what it's like to go to combat, bro. And you're the only reason you're comfortable is because you're amped up. But there's also, as you know, if you've done martial arts or if you've lifted, right? Do you even lift, bro? Right? Leg day.
Oh yeah.
Leg day. So, and it's that state of instead of fearing or being pissed off or being, okay, I've got to do it, you get to do it. And it's a shift in attitude. It's one of my favorites. And again, it's sippable, right? So you can regulate the flow. And the cool thing is you can also combine it with a couple of the other caps and get really, really juicy results that way.
Well, just a quick
juicy
comment.
Results. I like that.
Just another way is like you can microdose Power Solution. If you take a lot of it, you're going on you're flying, right? You're intense, you're gonna be driving. But I wake up, I drink about 10% of a bottle, boom, wakes me up. If I just need a little energy spurt, just drink 10, 20%, bang, right there.
And it's not an adrenal burnout. It's not an adrenal pump. Okay. Yes, adrenaline does flow, right? But what it does, it just brings up all of your neurotransmitters. Say, okay, we're awake and we can go play, and we've got all the precursors. So you can't override us right now, right? Overdrive.
Yeah. I feel like that's a good point to bring up, because people have asked me, like, what is the effect, like long-term effect? Like, do you get addicted to these? Like how does it actually affect your neurotransmitters? Because I think they're thinking of synthetic nootropics, right. Things like Adderall, which you can get addicted to. So talk to us about the effects there.
Well, we're talking about, again, receptor downregulation. And one of the reasons Mr. Noots and I have joined forces, and it's been a dream come true, I think, for both of us, is that we have the same exact approach to building products, which is precursors and maximize the conversions by stacking compounds. Why is that so superior? Because most drugs, like melatonin is a great example, right? Guess what happens with melatonin? Your melatonin production downregulates. You don't want that. Then you got to take more and more and more. Same thing with coffee, right? Coffee is effective for about 3 days. After that, it just takes you from tired to normal. That's it. So our approach is always, precursors, maximize the conversions, super clean extractions. We talk about what a toxin is. It's a molecule the body can't process. And you avoid all those issues when you use precursors and maximize with stacks. So that's our approach at BiOptimizers. And it's also our approach with Newtopia. And that's the big difference. So you're not, you just feel normal. If you don't take the stacks for a day, for a week, you just feel like yourself, and then you're able to again shift and just kind of go to a different level, if you will, with the stacks. And it's an awesome way to live.
That's a good point, because I don't want people to feel like they need these things to function. That's definitely not the case. I don't think that you should even rely on coffee to wake up in the morning. These things just enhance your productivity for like those days where, for me, I take the social command stack when I've got a podcast. And on the days that you don't take it, you can either not take anything, or you could take the mental reboot, which is what we can talk about now, which I'm a fan of, especially after a night of drinking, which your sleep is already compromised, but you take this mental reboot, and I was astonished. I was like, wow, like I feel really good. So what's going on there? Why does that happen?
Oh yeah, well that's big precursor stuff as well. So that there's a chemical called acetaldehyde that forms in the liver, right? When you drink, when you drink alcohol.
Yep.
And if you decide to do the weed instead as an alternative, you're starting to build up some other detritus in the brain, which slows down neurotransmitter transmission. And then there's a thing called, I won't get into, there's a bunch of biochemistry or neurochemistry that happens, but it basically slows process. When I was 10 years old, I started smoking weed. When I was 12, I quit. My big brother, who is my hero, quit, or he told me he quit, he lied, but he didn't like seeing me get high every day. So I started running 6 months into running hardcore as a kid, right? And I remember waking up a Saturday morning and finally having a clear head. That's at 12 years old, 6 months of hardcore athleticism every day. Like I do everything 120%, right? It was that kind of commitment. And it took 6 months to clear my receptors to the point where I actually felt that clarity again and was able to actually have lateral thinking and the creativity instead of just wanting to chill.
Wow.
So, right. I wanted to interact. So, and that was built that the mental reset, you've got a nighttime cap and then you've got a sublingual morning, right?
Yep.
So those two work together, but the nighttime cap, I actually worked really diligently to take advantage of the fact that when you sleep at night, your brain actually changes its size and it opens up basically little channels around all of the micro veins, right? Going through your brain. And it basically pushes toxins through the membrane and it pushes them out through the spinal column and gets rid of them. That's how it works. Well, if you have shitty sleep, you're not going to get that process. It's not going to be optimized. You can get a little bit of it, but not a lot. You get selected. You get shitty sleep for days or weeks on end. You start collecting that beta and tau proteins. Those are not good, man. Beta amyloids, that kind of plaque, really hard. So we built this to get rid of that. And there's a thing that happens when neurotransmitters are in a dysregulation or a downregulation process. So they look like mushrooms. Let's just say that, right? Neurons look like mushrooms, and they've got these little neuron pumps on the end of them. Those look like volcanoes. You've got a calcium ion cloud that goes around them that typically is trying to hold in the neurotransmitter, right? All of the different neurotransmitters. So they're flowing from one to the other. And of course, if you're on an SSRI or in any kind of a recirculating system, they're flowing back and forth on those. Well, that's hardening those little volcanoes, which are very pliable when they're young. But the potassium starts to harden those and they get hard and suddenly they're not pumping it very efficiently. Until you get rid of that excess of that hardener, those are downregulated. Well, one of the things nootropics do, really good organic, especially nootropics, is they do a thing called neurogenesis. So they stimulate neurogenesis and they basically give your brain the ability to create new neural pathways, new neurons. They're blooms of new neurons. And you have the capacity to program those to do whatever you want. So if you're normally a pissed off person who has a shitty attitude towards life, you can build new blooms of neurons and you can program those to go attack life in a really positive, awesome way. that's a state change that's permanent. You don't have to take nootropics after that to get there again. You can go there just by being there, just by thinking there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Important.
And I know lion's mane mushrooms can help with that too, in addition to, wow.
Like that was one of Matt's first nootropics.
Yeah.
Well, and back to creating states, I'll give you an example. My friend, so he took Focus Savagery on Sunday, and then on Monday, he's like, bro, like, is this still in my system? Because his gaming performance was still the same level. And that's because, what fires together, wires together. Your neurology will change based on what you've done. So if you take Noots and you go to a different level and your performance while you're in that state levels up, you keep the gains. And that's true as well doing neurofeedback. Once your brain learns how to get somewhere, it doesn't forget, and that's the thing with meditation. With neurofeedback, you're able to, okay, that's alpha, that's theta, that's gamma, that's delta. And you're able to shift your state accordingly. But once you figure out how to get there once, that's it. You keep it.
Yeah. And that's why these just keep getting better and better and better the more you take them, not only because they're customizable, so you can tweak some things, but the neurogenesis aspect of it. That's incredible.
Yeah, you raise your baseline. So it's really interesting because how again, we go to frog boiling, right? So as your baseline is changing, you're getting better and better and better. That becomes your new baseline. So you're actually starting from there. So then you take the next stack, right? And now you're going from this elevated baseline level to the next level. What's really fun is to take a look at the relationships you have and the dialogues you have, especially with some of your best brainstorming friends or partners, right? Or in mastermind groups and those things. And you find that your contribution level is increased. So you naturally increased. So, which is fantastic because those of us that giving is a core part of our physiology, neurology, and spirituality, is you get to that point, you're going, my God. So you can go into any situation confident that you can contribute. We call it exchange in abundance, right? You can give people as much or more than they expect, and as much or more than you even think that you're capable of, because you've got flow happening, because you've got a baseline state that's changed. It's really cool.
The secret to living is given.
It is, brother. It is.
Last thing
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, last thing I'll say about the mental reboot is I have a lot of clients come to me with brain fog and wanting to fix that. And I say, first and foremost, sleep. Like, you got to get that dialed in. And then your nutrition obviously plays a big role in that. If you're eating these inflammatory damaged fats, that's obviously not going to be good. But then the mental reboot, because especially for me, who I do get good quality sleep, I do have good quality nutrition. After a night of drinking, sometimes I will wake up with brain fog. But after taking that, it just it cleared it all the way, which was amazing.
That and a huge handful of masszymes before bed will pretty much prevent and eliminate any hangover. The enzymes also.
The masszymes, really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was hanging out with a friend of mine. Well, it was my birthday, and we were hanging out, and this guy was really hungover. And again, when I used to drink, this was my hack. Masszymes have been around for 15 years. So I was drinking and using masszymes to just get rid of the hangovers. It works, man. 10, 15 caps, you're good.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I know masszymes have a lot of uses. I use, oh my gosh, I use them every single day.
Enzymes are just, by the way, we're literally doing enzyme experiments in the lab. I mean, we're cooking up at BiOptimizers in Newtopia. I'm in awe. Okay. And I'm just literally in awe at what's happening. And we have a research team in Bosnia at the Sarajevo Birch University. And we're literally our team was doing experiments on enzymes on a Friday night. That's what they're doing. And we're just, we're about to blow away our entire product line. Again, we're just constantly trying to make things better. And that's the stuff that excites me as an entrepreneur.
Taylor, we've got these in Bosnia. We've got these freaking PhDs. We've got a docking expert that knows how to dock molecules together to create hybrid molecules that do things that you can't be done in real life. We've got the biofilm queen, who is an incredible PhD mastery in this stuff. we've got the mushroom girl, man. She is so awesome. She understands everything about how it works. She's Paul Stamets on shrooms.
Wow. Wow.
Right.
Well,
and we've got an AI genius who knows more about AI. And it was so funny. We were in a conversation with him on Tuesday, and we were talking about parallel computational power. And he goes, "Oh, you want me to go take my what do you call it, Matt?
Mining rig."
Yeah, let's take his mining rig, right? His Bitcoin mining rig of 25 parallel computers and apply it to our needs. So, I mean, this is pretty cool.
No, yeah, we're it's exciting times. And at the end of the day, our goal is to take people from sick to superhuman. And that's our mission. That's our purpose. That's why we're here. And we're going all the way, man. We're not stopped. We're just in the first inning, we really are.
Yeah, I love that. Just the beginning. It sounds like we're going to have a round 2 to talk about BiOptimizer supplements, because we didn't even get a chance. We mentioned magnesium breakthrough. You just mentioned the Masszymes, but there's so much other stuff. So real quick, before we run out of time, let's just breeze through these last 3, the Upbeat, the Brain Flow, and Apex. What can those do for us?
I'll take Upbeat. Upbeat's a lot of people's favorites. I love it. I took it this morning. It really helps, again, boost that serotonin, boost your mood. And what's great about the stacks, and this is all, just a 30-day guided journey people get to help them go through the stacks. But Upbeat stacked with something that's a little more sympathetic, like a power solution or focused savagery, you really, really balance your neurochemistry. Now you've got the drive, the focus, the intensity, but you've also got that connectiveness. You feel good. You're in a good mood. You're upbeat, and it rocks. So that's my spiel on Upbeat.
All right, Mr. Noots, you want to take Brain Flow?
Sure, I'll take Brain Flow. Yeah. Well, actually, let me take Apex.
Go for it.
Apex was a long journey. So, acetylcholine, right? That's like one of the primary neurotransmitters for thinking and creativity and those things.
Focus.
And it transferred, right? Exactly. Yeah. So, one of the big problems that we've always felt was that unless you're regulating the amount of acetylcholine you're doing over time, you go into, as you get higher and higher in the acetylcholine level, you start getting into brain fog and you start getting into aggression and some other things. And then you feel like crap and you can't function. And then you come off of that and suddenly you feel good. But as you're coming off of it, you're feeling good. You can operate for a very limited amount of time. And then suddenly you're off the performance curve and, it's time to go watch Netflix again. So Apex is a self-regulating acetylcholine esterase inhibitor that just continues to work for extended. And this is the first, I felt it was the first 12-hour, 85, 90% performance capsule that I could put together. That, otherwise it would take a lot of, 5, 6, 7 caps or something like that. But being able to compress it into one capsule through an extraction technology and approach that we used, and then really being able to focus in on the elements of Celastrus paniculatus or intellectrice seed that makes it special. And we were able to actually pull those compounds out and make those the macro. So anyway, yeah, it's my favorite in that. So
wow. All right, Brain Flow,
Mr. Noots.
Matt, come on.
All right. Well, Brain Flow is very cool. First of all, it's a beautiful caps. I got to say,
it's very cool.
All credit goes to Mr. Noots. He's created the coolest, sexiest looking capsules ever made, and just some of the new stuff's coming out. No, but it's awesome. Part of that too is in the manufacturing process, because we modify, we need to build the layers, but it just looks awesome. And Brain Flow is very unique because it's a cap inside of a cap, and part of that is because of the way the digestive system works. We want that second layer to break down further into the digestive process. Because the thing we're obsessed about, and this is true as well with BiOptimizer products, is absorption.
Yep.
So for an example, the spray or the sublingual, it's optimized delivery form. Some things you want to take with fats. Now the Brain Flow brings up, and this is what I'm about to drop, is a mega bomb. Okay, it's a mega bomb that you can apply in a lot of ways. So I was reading research, and by this is in the Brilliant Mind Blueprint. Reading research saw that CBD 800% more uptake if you take it with a high-fat meal. That triggers the light bulb. Like, yeah, that's true for every fat soluble compound. Tried it with vitamin D, took my levels from a best ever of 55 to 150 with the same dose. I could never get past 55. The only thing I did, I built a fat stack. So Brain Flow is great for the fat stack. Apex is great for the fat stack. Those fat soluble capsules, that's when you take it. You can take CBD, krill, any type of algae oil or any DHA will also level things up. CBD is really, we look at it like a nootropic because CBD will increase anandamide, which is a really powerful molecule. That's the bliss molecule. If you boost that along with a few other ones, you can get into an incredible space. Like that's the stack that I'm on right now. The CBD is a part of my extroversion stack. When I'm on CBD, CBG, THC though, I think that's a performance destroyer in general. Again, some people a little bit can improve them maybe, but I'm not a big fan of THC. Again, microdose along with CBD maybe, but anything that's fat soluble, that's a good time for butter, coffee. So MCT, and then your vitamin D, your vitamin K, vitamin E, all those at the same time in the morning. First of all, you're going to get a much better delivery of everything. It all amplifies. You're going to get a better stream because the fats are absorbed slower than glucose is, right? Mm-hmm. Now you can take Capex. So I've been playing with that. You can take Capex, your BiOptimizer product with that fat stack, which will also enhance it. Capex has been designed to break fat. So that's a game changing, again, for anything that's fat soluble, any fat soluble herbs, supplements, vitamins, you take it all in one shot in the morning and you just track your blood work and of course, track the results, the effect. It's awesome. And we've tried that with all kinds of fat soluble caps and it works every single time.
Yeah. And I can second that from personal experience because a lot of mornings I start off with, I call it upgraded coffee. It's basically bulletproof coffee with a few extra things added in. Take that with some of these nootropics and your morning workday is just like, you are in the zone. And everything that he's talking about is in the Brilliant Mind Blueprint, which comes with your Order of World Domination, the nootropics. And last but not least, saved another one of my favorites for last, the ones that we've been squirting in our mouths the whole time. The Zamner Juice. This one is so cool because it's like an instant pick me up. It's just anytime, just take it. So talk to us briefly about Zamner Juice, and then we'll tell people where they can get all these amazing nootropics. That
was actually developed as an anti-road rage solution.
Perfect.
I was working with a Hawaiian couple who really, really needed to control their cycles because they would go through these very aggressive cycles. And so we'd been working on the GABA-centric, and centricity and the ability to be able to manage anger, depression, and be able to get into flow state more elegantly. And so GABA became a huge part of that. But the challenge was you could take something and wait for 40 minutes or an hour and wait for it to actually come on. Or we could create a sublingual spray that bypasses the liver and gets it into your system within 30 seconds to 3 minutes so that you've got that instantaneous response. And then we escalated it a bit by giving it just a tiny bit of adrenaline. So you weren't falling asleep or feeling yourself losing your edge, your competitive edge. And it worked really effectively. We gave it to a number of tennis players as well. And kind of my core where I play. So yeah, really effective.
Yeah. Genius. All right, guys. Well, this has been fascinating and we only covered a small fraction of everything that I wanted to get into. We could talk for hours, but tell people, because I know my audience is going to want to get their hands all over this stuff as I did. Where can people find Newtopia?
Yeah, Newtopia, the playground for your mind. Go to Nootopia, so 2 O's there, .com/VIP and use the code Captain Morgan. Love the name. That was part of my liquor selection back in the day. But yeah, Newtopia.com/VIP, code Captain Morgan is going to save you a bit of money. Yeah, give it a shot. We recommend, give it at least 2 months. The first month will blow your socks off. Second month's going to be even better. Why? Because you're learning. Plus, we can modify your second order based on your first. You can get rid of stuff you don't like. You can add more of what you do. Like it's total, absolute customization on every level. So check it out, Nootopia.com/VIP. Code Captain Morgan. Give it a shot, and it's life-changing. Like this changes your reality on a daily basis.
For real. And all this stuff's going to be included in the show notes, guys. And yeah, I can't emphasize the customization enough. That is so cool. This is the only product out there like that. You can, like you said, you can take things out, you can add more of things, customize the blend. It's incredible. So Mr. Noots, Matt, thank you guys so much for coming on the show, for spreading your, last thing, I got to clarify this. Is it nootropic or nootropic?
It's nootropic. I like to be lazy and say nootropic because I think that in the English language, I think we spend way too much time in tomato and tomato. Mm-hmm. So, and it actually does make sense even if you look in the Greek and you start going backwards on it. So yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right, guys. Well, yeah, this has been fascinating. Thanks again for coming on the show, and for everybody listening, don't forget, live the captain's lifestyle.